healthcare debate in America has been hijacked by some very loud and obnoxious people who have a financial interest in keeping the status quo over there. And I think they're being helped by some of the worst blowhards you can imagine, people like Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly and basically the whole of Fox News. And they seem to be raising the temperature of the debate over there to an incredibly dangerous level. And the thing about Twitter is that these people like Glenn Beck, they think that they can spread lies about the NHS and no one will notice because they've forgotten that the rules are all different now and it's a very connected world and we're all keeping our eye on each other. So I realized that if I highlighted some of the lies and added a hashtag of "We Love the NHS," I thought it might grow to a fair size, but I didn't really expect it to get this big. So I just thought that it would be nice to counter some of the lies by getting people on the ground to actually, tell their stories. And I also thought it might provide ammunition for people who are fighting these scare stories in America, because now all they have to do is write in the hashtag "We Love the NHS" into a search engine, and there's going to be thousands and thousands of testimonials from people who love the service. If the American right had not used such ridiculous arguments to get their point across, then it may not have taken off the way it did. But by saying things like Stephen Hawking wouldn't have been allowed to live under the NHS when he's British and grew up in England, they've just totally, shot themselves in the foot, and they've mobilized the British, So yeah, that's kind of it's kind of like being you can criticize your parents, but if anyone else criticizes them, murder them. And the thing is, number 10 quote from the PM on Twitter was, to be honest, slightly embarrassing, because he was using the same kind of language that he gives you in TV interviews, and it just sounded like political babble. So he doesn't really understand yet what Twitter is, and I would advise him to listen in on people a bit more before he starts making statements on it. It's the kind of platform where political cant it can really be exposed under a very harsh light. So I would say they should wait. Although Sarah Brown's comment I thought was very heartfelt and excellent, but Gordon needed another go at another draft. So the lie that the NHS is somehow responsible for euthanasia, or Sarah Palin used this term death panels. These are things that we can now counter by getting a lot of people online to tell the truth. Everyone has a story about the NHS helping them in some way, and we're all grateful, that our tax goes to give us some peace of mind that we won't go bankrupt when we get sick. The NHS is like the BBC or some of our other institutions. It's important to us, and we may slag it off, but it's ours. And I think the lesson from this as well for any future government who wants to come in and mess with things is to step carefully, because people might seem to be moaning about their lot, but you attack the NHS or the BBC at your peril. I think basically now with Twitter, everyone is now a broadcaster in terms of their own life, and a lot of people criticize Twitter for being narcissistic or superficial, but it's only as narcissistic and superficial as the people who are using it. The more interesting people who are on Twitter, the better the service will be. And the more interesting times you're living through, the better the service it will be. I mean, as soon as the NHS became an important thing to talk about, Twitter stepped up to the plate and became a great tool for spreading the word. And as soon as, and that happened in Iran as well, it put, as many people have said before me, it put a human face on the revolution there, and I've just been getting a little bit annoyed with think pieces in newspapers that kind of criticize the service, that are usually written by people who don't really know what it is. People who they use their laptop as a light more than anything else. People like Daniel Hannan, I think what's interesting about him is that I know today, I think in the Telegraph, he came out saying, well, I'm actually, I just support a system like the one in Singapore. But the thing is, if you're serious about getting your opinions heard and about improving the NHS, you don't go on Glenn Beck's show. Glenn Beck is an attack dog for the right wing in America. You don't go on his show, and I think it is stabbing the NHS in the back. Not because of what he said, but because of where he said it. What I think everybody who's been involved in this is trying to do is trying to calm the debate down in America, and also open up the debate over here. The debate up until now has been restricted to Daily Mail scare headlines, and what this has proved, I think, is that there's a huge, reservoir of affection for the NHS, but you've never been able to hear about it until now. Now that ordinary people have this chance to broadcast, you're getting to hear the truth, which is a lot more complicated and a lot more. It's got a lot more shades than people somewhere like the Daily Mail or Fox News in America would have you believe. And I think Twitter is a great way of amassing these shades of opinion, getting them together, and maybe improving the world. Well, I'm always at a loss to understand why it's so hard for presidents to get through health reforms. Clinton's first term, he failed, didn't he? He tried to do it and it didn't happen. So I'm always surprised by how angry and annoyed the right get. But I think in this particular case, I think what's happened is that it really could be anything. It just happens to be healthcare. But it's such a big kind of cornerstone of what Obama wants to do that the right know that if he fails to do it, they'll be, they hope they'll be cutting him off at the knees. So really, I think this could have been any important change he wanted to make, and it would have people in town halls screaming, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, shouting people down, bringing guns, to town halls, all this stuff. I think it would have happened whatever he was talking about. This is the most important thing. This is the most important thing to remember about the right wing in America. They hate Obama more than they've hated any president in living memory. They hate him, And the idea that he could be successful, Rush Limbaugh has actually come out and said that he wants Obama to fail. I don't know if people, are familiar with Rush, but he's the guy who did an impression of Michael J. Fox having Parkinson's, So these are the kind of people who are lined up against Obama, and I think anything we can do to help, really.